Yeah, all right. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Assalamu alaikum. Tashi lafiya. Ya azumi. Aiki. To ba ku yin aikin lada? Ku je ku mika bulo mana. Assalamu alaikum.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Hi, good morning, everyone. It's so good to be here today. It's so good to be here this beautiful Friday morning, and I hope the holiday is kicking well from your end as well. Welcome to the Climate Actors Accelerator Program Masterclass. This is where we gather to explore innovative solutions and strategies for combating climate change and driving sustainable development. My name is Janet Olaolu, and I'm going to be your moderator for today's session. And it's a pleasure for me to be here again with you all. Yeah, I've been here twice, but then I was out, and now I am back, and I'm so glad to be back here with you. So today we're going to kickstart immediately, and we will be embarking on a journey of knowledge sharing and collaboration as we delve into the critical topic of renewable energy and energy management. And as we strive to transition towards a more sustainable future, understanding the intricacies of renewable energy sources and effective energy management practices becomes paramount. So, our first speaker will be taking us on the topic of renewable energy and energy management. Our speaker is a distinguished career, and he has done a lot for himself when it comes to renewable energy. So give me just few of your time, short minutes for me to unveil our speaker and read out his profile. So our speaker is no other person than Mr. Benjamin Gomado. Mr. Benjamin Gomado will be taking us on our first session for this masterclass today on renewable energy and energy management. Benjamin is an electrical electronic engineer with over 2 years of demonstrated relevant work experience in renewable energy for global development, hydropower, the wash sector, and the process industry. As a certified North American Board of Energy Practitioner Associate, Benjamin believes that access to renewable and sustainable energy is crucial in ensuring that communities and countries develop in a manner that protects our environment and empowers the various sectors of society. Benjamin is very passionate about renewable and sustainable energy for international development. Benjamin is a practical hands-on electrical and electronic engineer with sound academic and industrial research knowledge. He is interested in renewable energy and sustainable energy system for global development, industrial controls and automation, power system analysis, power system protections and control, projects management and professional practices, power electronics, mechatronics, and economics. Benjamin is a detailed oriented, responsible, and committed individual with a get it done on time and high quality work spirit who strives for excellence in all his endeavors. I can go on and on and on and on. But because of our time, I'll stop here to bring on board to the online virtual stage, Mr. Benjamin Gumado. Please, you can start your class now. Kindly unmute your microphone and share your video with us. Welcome aboard. It's nice to have you join us, Mr. Benjamin.
All right. Thank you, Janet. Madam Janet Olalu, right? Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And yeah, I really appreciate. So fellows, let me know if you can see my screen. You can see me. So this is Benjamin. Probably because of the network, I will be opening the video. But this is Benjamin. You're seeing it's a virtual space. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. All right. So permission to off the screen so that I can have a good bandwidth. Right.
Of course you can, sir, but you can kindly share your slide with us.
Okay, thank you. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see your screen now.
Okay. All right. Yes. So, as Madam Janek has just introduced, I'll be talking about renewable energy and energy management, or in other words, energy efficiency. Right. And in the presentation, okay, this is a bit about me that has been done already. So no need to go over. Yeah. I have an ASEP qualification, which allows me to do consultation for solar PV and all that, right? Yeah, electronic engineer by profession. Yeah, I've been with AFIO since 2021, 2022, and 2023, currently with AFIO. Right, some research areas. Yeah. So now the presentation today will cover the following. I'll be talking about the concept of renewable energy, diverse sources of renewable energy, energy management efficiency, case study examples of energy management in Nigeria and some Africa countries. I'll also be talking briefly about the integration of renewable energy into the traditional grid and some real world impacts. Right. So we want to cover this in our presentation today. I have 45 minutes for the presentation and 50 minutes for Q&A. Is that correct, Janet? Right. So please let me know if you can hear me. Hello? Hello? Please let me know if you can hear me. I need a response. Feel free to. Okay. All right. I get it. Okay. So we'll move on. So what is renewable energy? What is renewable energy? When we talk about renewable energy, what at all is it? Yeah, so renewable energy, basically, we are talking about sources of energy that can be replenished. I mean, it is a source that you can always replenish. That is the meaning of renewable. It does not deplete completely, right? And so that's what we are talking about. So it's constantly replenished. For example, if you take like sunlight, you take like wind, you take like water, you take like geothermal heat, all these are sources of renewable energy, right? And it can be replenished. We have the sun abundant, we have the wind there, the water and all that, right? So when we look at some of the benefits of renewable energy. So one, we have renewable energy is able to reduce carbon emission. And so now if you are paying attention closely, following the COPs, the dialogues that have been going on, we realize that emission, it's really something that we are trying to, minimize. We are trying to minimize so that our climate will be safe, our ozone layer will be protected, and all that, and so that we can have a sustainable future, right? Yeah. So carbon emission is one of the advantage. With renewable energy, you are able to reduce that, and also you are able to mitigate climate change. Like I'm saying, you all agree with me that, and the weather we currently have now, that was not the weather we had maybe some 5 years ago, right? Some 3 years ago. You realize that the weather, the climate is changing, and just because there are a lot of things that we are doing which are not, I mean, um, renewable wise, and so they are adding a lot of danger to the climate, and so it's making the climate not a good one. So that is causing a climate change, right? So we need to take note, and also that we also want to look at another benefit is promote energy independence. So with renewable energy, you have in energy independence, you have sources, right? So a source that can never be depleted. Also, another benefit is that it creates sustainable development opportunities, right? I wanted to tell you emphatically that if you're a young person and you are looking at where to invest your knowledge, in where to invest your knowledge, I want to assure you that renewable energy is one of the good space to do that. It's one of the good space. And that is the future now, because we are talking about sustainability, safeguarding the climate, and renewable energy will give you that, right? And there are a lot of opportunity there, right? So diverse sources of renewable energy. We have solar power, right? We have solar power. And so solar energy is able to harness the sunlight through what we call the photovoltaic cells or solar thermal system, and so thereby changing that into electricity or heat, right? And so basically, when it comes to electricity generation, you must have a source, you must have a generator, and you must have a system that transmits, right? So these are three things that define a power system. You must have a source of your generation. You must have a device that work on that source to a desired format you want. Then you must have a system to now carry what you now generated to target areas or target regions. Do you get it? So with the solar power, you are basically talking about a system which is photovoltaic, right? Photo means light, and so photovoltaic system, a panel where you have an irradiance, right, on it, and that is dislodging electrons. The movement will now be causing electricity, right? So that is basically about it, right? And I want you to take note here that when it comes to the solar power, it's not necessarily about the temperature. So people say, oh, okay, I have a lot of sun here, and so I'm able to get a good solar output. It is true, but not all the cases, because excessive heat does not give efficient solar power, right? From research, you have 25 degrees Celsius, which is an ideal temperature for a good generation from solar power. So anything above that 25 will cause 1 wattage loss in power, right? And so if you are doing critical analysis where you want to look at a temperature correction, maybe you have a panel, one panel is sited in an environment where the temperature is maybe 35, and another is an environment where the temperature is 29 or 25. When you do the temperature correction, you realize that the one in the 25 will give a better yield, a good efficiency compared to the one in the 30, because efficiency is only equivalent to heat, right? So you need to take note of that. So when you're looking at citation of your solar panel, you have to look at the environment. The temperature is very important. You have to look at that as well, right? And so in response to COVID-19, all of you know what when a COVID hit, right? So in response to COVID-19 pandemic, the federal government of Nigeria launched the Solar Power Niger program as part of the economic sustainability plan. So those of you in Nigeria, you agree with me that during the time of the COVID, the government, the federal government has launched this system, Solar Power Niger, right? The goal is to have what we call the economic sustainability, right? So every economy, take notes, every economy, a good economy, need a strong power system, right? So if you want to know how strong your economy is, as an engineer, I just have to look at your voltage level, your power level of that nation, right? And so in US, we have some are running the system of 660 volts, right? 330 and all that. In some part of the country today, running 161, their transmission line, their voltage level 161 and all that. So your voltage level, your power system also tells a lot about your economic development, right? Take note, right? So some of the advantage of solar power, of course, we have it is clean, it is abundant, it's suitable for decentralized energy generation. It reduces reliance on fossil fuels. So you need to take note of that. In one of my research, I work on the what we call the DD, right? DG, that is distributed renewable system, right? And so here basically you are looking at a system that is closer to the point of use, right? So with solar, you are able to have a suitable decentralized energy generation, right? It's closer to the point of use, minimizing energy loss and all that. So solar is able to give you that. We also have wind energy as one of the sources. And so here basically wind energy, it's about capturing the energy in the wind, right? So as the wind moves, there is the wind current. There's you can have a system which is the turbine, the blade you have, right? So that blade is able to convert the energy in that moving wind into electricity, right? So basically, as you can see here, you have the turbine, you have it rated, and you have the blade. This is a three-bladed turbine, right? And so inside this, we have what we call the NASA. Inside the NASA, we have the rotor, the generating. That's where the generation occurs, right? So inside that system, you have a whole generation unit, right? So as I told you initially, that when you're looking about generation, you need to have a source, you need to have a unit that generates, and you need to have a transmission system for a complete power system. So what we are seeing here, there is a source, that is the wind, and the blade is converting the energy in the wind, and with the help of the generating system, you are able to get the electricity, right? And with cable connection, you're able to transmit to a point of use. So that is what is happening here, right? But one of the disadvantage of wind is that with wind system, because of a movement part, there are mechanical losses and all that, right? But yes, still there are some. We have wind farms; they are renewable and they are very important. Now, another very good example. I try as much as possible to get some example in Nigeria. So we have Kachina Wind Farm, right? So Kachina Wind Farm contribute to the region's electricity supply and support renewable energy goals, right? Yes, so Kachina is one of a renowned wind farm in Nigeria. I've got some data. We've analyzed some data on it. I mean, a study was done a study was done to see at various months what are the wind speed, right? You know, when it comes to wind generation, what we call the cutting wind and the cutout wind, right? The cutting wind is the desire that causes generation. The cutout is what doesn't cause a generation, right? It is out of range. So you are looking at the cutting one. So we've done analysis to look at for each month, for every month, right? What are some of the wind speed that can help to give a good generation? And so there's an Excel data, Excel sheet with that data, I think from, some 2000, I think 2012 from something, right? So there's that data. And when you analyze, you can even know the generation and all that. I want you to note one key thing here when it comes to wind energy, right? Now, when it comes to wind energy, I want you to know that the wind blade, the turbines are not there already in the market for you to order. As an engineer, you have to design the system, and after the design of the system, then you place an order that, okay, based on this analysis, based on this wind speed, cutting wind speed I have in this my locality, and based on this calculation I've done, and I need this output, maybe I need 10 megawatts of wind energy, I'm placing this order so that you get me this turbine, right? So you can place a request with Vesta, you can place a request with GE, that General Electric, so they can get you the turbine, the blade and all that, right? So we want to quickly look at some of the advantages of wind energy. One, it reduces greenhouse gas emission, it creates jobs, it supports local economies. So like I said, there are a lot of advantages when it comes to renewable energy. Greenhouse, it's minimized, there are jobs opportunity, and there are local economies is boosted, right? So as we have a lot of jobs, people are able to earn, GDP goes up, right? Yes, so because a lot of people now have something to do, they will pay tithes, you can now have good rules and all that, right? So now another source is called the hydroelectric power. Now, one key thing you need to note here is that it is not all the hydro sources that are renewable. We have what we call the mini hydro. The goal of renewable is that we are talking about source that is not depleted, right? So take note, a replenished source, right? Yeah, so hydroelectric power generate electricity from flowing water. So basically here, what you need to know when it comes to hydro generation, again, in complete power system, you are looking at a source, you are looking at a generation unit, and you are looking at a transmission system. So when it comes to a hydroelectric power, hydro means water, electric are talking about, that's the power. So basically here, what we are doing is that your source of electricity is coming from water, right? So that's the meaning basically. And so here, a dam is hoarded with the water at a height, or what you call the dam head, or the head of a dam. And so water is able to flow from the dam to a system we call turbine. So the turbine have a rotating part. So as the water moves into the turbine, it hits the rotating part of the turbine, and the turbine is vertically coupled to what we call a generator. And because it's vertically coupled to the generator, as the turbine turns, it's able to turn the generator. And with the action of electromagnetic induction, you are able, as the rotation goes on, there's what we call, as the rotation is happening, the rotating part is lying in what we call a stator, in that generator unit. So as the rotating part is cutting along the stator, you are able to generate voltage, and that voltage is now collected at the terminal, right? And I want you to know that there are some we have generator output. So there are some that have 14.4, there are some that have 13.4. In Ghana, we have a generator. One of the largest hydropower is called Akosombo Dam, and the output of the generator is 14.4 kilovolts, and that is with what we call transformers. You are able to, increase that output from 14.4 to 161 or 330 to meet the national grid, so you can transmit, right? So that is a brief about hydroelectric power you need to know, right? Yeah. Now we have what you got the Kanjin Dam on the Niger River is a significant hydroelectric power plant in Nigeria, generating electricity for the national grid and supporting irrigation, flood control, right? I don't know if you pay attention or you've listened to news, you realize that there was a case where there was a flood system here in Ghana as a result of the overflow of the dam, right? Yes. So when it comes to dam construction, there are a lot of components. There's what we call the spillway, there's all the terrace and all that, right? And so you have a compartment where when the reservoir is is over, it's more than expected, you can relieve the system so that some of the water will go there. Now that water you are relieving there, you can have another system to generate from that also. So it becomes like a cascading effect, right? So here in Ghana, we have the main hydro dam, Akosombo. The water that is coming, the excess water that is coming from that dam is used to generate another one. And that plant is also called Pong water, also hydro, right? So quickly, let's look at some of the advantages here. We are looking at one, reliable and renewable energy source. And so because it's reliable, it's able to give you what we call the base load support and supporting water management, right? So the base load, you're able to support a base load is enough to power your system and give you a good stable system, right? So we have what we call, another source is called the biomass energy. So biomass energy, basically it's about generating from organic sources. Bio means life. Bio means life. Bio means life. So when you're talking about the biomass, you are talking about you are generating from organic sources, right? So here, your system of where you are generating from is organic material like wood, crop residue, animal waste, and all that. One key thing you need to know here when it comes to biomass energy is that there are levels of efficiency or yield you can get depending on your what you call your material, your organic material you are using. Do you get it? And research shows that there is much yield with organic system, like when it comes to let's say kitchen waste, right? Animal waste, kitchen waste, animal waste. This thing will give you a much better yield compared to wood, crop residue, and all that. Do you get it? So you need to know that is very important when it comes to bioenergy generation, because and as an engineer or a climate activist, you need to note some of these things, right? Maybe you can be hired, you can be consulted to give some advice on bioenergy, and so you need to be able to do that, right? And also the citation, where you cite the system and all that, it has to be closer to your field, what you call your field. So the field is basically where you are generating from. Because if it is not close, you can expense a lot. It can increase your CAPEX. It can affect your capital expenditure. You need to convey from long distances to get your feed to where you are generating. And so normally it's advisable to site closer to the source of the feed, where you are getting the feed from. And the best field is to get from animal waste, right? So kitchen things that, have a lot of organic matter, right? Take note. Advantages: it reduces waste, it supports rural economies. I wanted to tell you, I've worked in waste management system. I currently do some work there. So in Ghana here, there's a waste management called Jospon. Jospon is now moving to Nigeria. Those of you who are reading news, following news, you realize that Jospon is moving. Jospon is currently in Nigeria. We're having a partnership. They just currently signed memorandum of understanding with the Nigeria government, and they are trying to replicate a waste management system in Nigeria. Those of you following this, you get to see that, right? And so you're able to reduce waste, you're able to support rural economies, right? So you're able to manage waste efficiently, right? Because waste is not good. And so you're able to manage waste, you're able to get electricity from that, you're able to manage it to have a clean environment. Now, any question before I move on? I'll now be moving on to energy management and efficiency. Any question? Admin, are they able to unmute and ask any question before I move on? Or I can move on, then when I'm done, then they ask the question. Which one? All right. Please, I want to know if you can hear me. Admin, are they able to ask question now, or I can move on later? Okay, all right, sure. So, okay, so I'm moving on. Afterwards, then you ask the question, right? So let's move on. So basically, what I've been talking about up to this point is what we call renewable energy. Renewable energy. We've talked about sources that are can be replenished. They don't completely deplete, right? And so they are renewable sources. And we've looked at some of the sources. We've talked about the solar, we've talked about hydro, we've talked about wind, and we talk about the bioenergy or the biomass. Are we getting it? So these are some of the 4 renewable energy sources. And we've looked at the explanation. How do you generate from these sources, right? As a climate activist, you need to know, so that when you are proposing a plan to government or to agency, you need to know what exactly you are talking about. And so we've talked about this. Now, from here, I'll be moving on to energy management and efficiency. You cannot talk about energy management and leave efficiency behind. So the two goes hand in hand. They are twins, right? Right. So from here, I'll be talking about energy management. Now, when you talk about energy management, it's basically about how do you optimize the energy you have, right? How do you make a judicious use of the energy you have? And the goal is to reduce costs, to minimize environmental impacts, right? You are maximizing the energy, you are optimizing the use of the energy. So that is basically about energy management, right? Energy management. And I want you to know that energy shouldn't go waste. Don't say I'm paying for energy, so I can just handle it anyhow. After I pay for my electricity bill, so I have control. I can misuse it. No, we are all drawing from a pool. There's what we call a grid, a national grid. And so if you mismanage the energy, it can indirectly affect somebody, right? And so there is a need to make a judicious use of the energy, right? So that's what we call energy management. That is all about optimizing the energy use, thereby reducing costs, minimizing environmental impact, right? Okay, so energy efficiency, basically, so if you manage energy, the goal is you want to have an efficiency. Basically, that is the goal, right? And so we have energy efficiency in buildings. So now modern buildings, there are energy management system, there are energy efficient systems that you want to have. And so we have techniques for energy efficiency buildings. For example, there are insulation, energy efficient appliances like LED, light emitting diodes, smart building system, which eventually reduces energy consumption, right? Yes, so there are systems like that. We are looking at how do you now build as a house, a sustainable a house that have a techniques for energy efficiency, right? So as an activist, an engineer, a planner, your goal is optimization, optimizing the use of the energy you have, right? So there are techniques. You can have an insulation. So when you go, insulation will understand better when you're in the US, those regions will understand this better with the insulation, because the temperature there is very cold. You can go as low as negative, and so you need to have a system to conserve the energy in the room. You need to have some form of insulation and all that, right? And we also have energy efficient appliances. So as an engineer or climate activist, you can do recommendation that, look, for the sake of energy management system, your appliances you'll be using be so long for 10 years, 13 years, 12 years. It's been a long. I suggest that you have a change, you change it for efficiency sake, because as you use it for so long, the energy consumption now changes, so it becomes inefficient, right? So we have now, with technology of LED, light emitting diode, you're able to have a system that does efficient management of the energy. Do you get it? Compared to fluorescent bulb and all that. So now when you go to most of the homes now, we have a LED system, not the olden days types, fluorescent and all that, incandescent system. Do you get it? Right. Yes. So we also have smart building, where there are system. Let's say you have a system technology where you know that probably when you are going out of your room, you mostly forget to off your lights. And so you have a sensor system where once the last occupant of the room is out, the lights in the room goes off by themselves, right? And so that is a smart system you implement to manage your energy, right? So the sensor responds to proximity, it responds to human. So as there's a human in the room, the light comes on by itself. As the last occupant of the room is out, then the lights in the room goes out, right? So that you can manage the energy. You can also have that with your fridge and all that. Right now, with IoT technology or IoT Internet of Things, you can even be remotely regulate some of these things. You can be at work and turn off your fridge, right? So you have that system on your phone where you can turn off your fridge. Maybe at where you forgot to off your system at home, you can turn off some of these things with IoT, Internet of Things, and all that, right? You can also, from remotely at work, you can monitor what is going on at your home. You can regulate things with the help of cameras, implants, a strategic position. You can see some of these things, manage stuff, right? Smart system. Then, and one case study you need to know is that there is a case study example in Nigeria that is green buildings like the Nigeria Stock Exchange building in Lagos showcase energy efficiency design, right? So those of you in the Nigerians, those of you in Nigeria, you know about the Nigeria Stock Exchange building, which is in Lagos, and this is showcasing energy efficiency design, technology saving energy, and effectively helping to manage costs, right? So take note, it's a case study, so you can read more about it. Those of you in Nigeria, you are close, you can go and have a look. Tell management that I've learned about this. I want to have a look. I want to address myself to see how it works and all that, right? Yeah. So we also have industrial energy management. Industrial energy management. The goal is we are improving industry energy efficiency. So if you have ever worked in industry, you know the industry setting, you realize that at times there are a lot of systems that are old, that are using a lot of energy, right? So it's not efficient. I've worked in industry, I'm still working in industry. There are at times there are motors that are so old. They are not efficient any longer. And so as an engineer, climate activist, someone who is passionate about the energy management, renewable energy, you can suggest to management that look, this pump has been, it's very old, it's taking a lot of power, it's not efficient enough. Look, this motor is taking a lot of power, it's not efficient enough. I propose that we look at it to change it, right? So that we can conserve energy, we can manage our energy, right? So from time to time, that's what we call energy auditing, right? That's what we call energy auditing, where you come and do you measure the rate at which your loads consume energy, right? So you measure all those things to realize that no, some of the devices are defective, they are not good, they are so old, so there's a need to replace them. Maybe during the time of the siting of the plant, the loads they use from the beginning, some are old type fluorescent bulb, some are still incandescent, and so you have to change those incandescent and fluorescent system to LED, light emitting diode, because you want to save energy, you want to conserve, you want to manage your energy. Do you get it? So these are some of the things you do as an engineer, as a climate activist, right? Passionate about renewable energy systems. These are some of the things you have to do. They also have renewable energy integration, right? So when it comes to generation, as I said, we have a source, we have a generation unit, then we have a transmission system to have a complete power system, right? So now, before the emergence of renewable energy, there's what we call the traditional grid, right? The traditional grid. We still even have the traditional grid. That is the normal power system we have, right? And so with the traditional grid, now we are looking at how do we integrate. Integration is about addition. We are talking about addition of renewable energy into the old energy system. Remember, it's a system. And so if you're adding something, you need to ensure that what you are adding has the same value or has the same component to meet where you are going to add it. If not, there can be rejection. So in one of my projects, I've done analysis where I integrated a renewable energy. I've done simulation. I've done assessment. I've done integration of 100 kilowatts solar PV into the traditional grid. And when you are doing that, you have to ensure that there is a matching of what we call frequency, matching of voltage, right? So that there's no rejection. And so now the traditional grid is receiving some integration of renewable energy sources. Some you have the solar integrated, you have the wind, you have the bio integrated, you can even have the hybrid system, right? Because we want to phase out the DG, we want to phase out this generator unit because it's not good for the climate. Generator, it gives the carbon monoxide, which affect the climate, right? With further reaction, give you the carbon dioxide, all those things affect the climate, give you acid rain and all that, which affect the climate. And so we don't want that. It doesn't give you a sustainable climate. And so we are talking about phasing out those systems, then rather having an integration of a renewable energy source into the traditional grid. So mostly when you go to most places now, some offices, you see that we have the solar together with the traditional grid, the utility, or you have the two together, or you have maybe 30%, 70. Maybe you are using the traditional grid 70%, and you are using the solar or the renewable energy source 30%. So you can have a design, you tell the engineer that, look, I want to have a 30, 70, I want to have 50, 50, 50, I want to have 60, 40. It's a design you have, right? Right. So this is it. Now in transportation too, again, Jospon is going into what we call now electric vehicles, right? Recently, there's a news that Jospon, who is now in charge when it comes to electric vehicle for West Africa, West Africa. So they are in charge now when it comes to, yeah. So now the goal is we are looking at energy efficiency management. And so even in transport system, we are looking about electric vehicle initiatives, biofuel project, right? Electric vehicle initiative. Now we want to change the fuel system of the car into electric system. Why? Because the fuel there is toxic to the environment, it's toxic to the climate. And so we want to have a conversion of that fuel system into electric system, which is friendly to the environment, which can protect the climate. I hope we are getting it. And so that is the goal of the electric vehicle. That is what is causing the movement, the technology of electric vehicle initiative. So we all need to embrace it, especially a climate activist. You have no choice but to embrace this initiative and suggest to management, make a strong case, propose, tell them, no, look, this is the new move. This is where we need to get to. If you are talking about climate change, if you are talking about protecting the climate, talking about sustainability, now we need to go into electric vehicle. It's very critical, it's very crucial. We need to push into that. We're also talking about biofuel project. Recently, one of our papers have been published. I worked with one of the professors at European University, and we published a paper about the title of the paper is about laws that will regulate successful taking on of what renewable energy, specifically biofuels, right? So UE laws, European Union laws, that should help in efficient taking off of what renewable energy, specifically biofuels. You can read that paper. You can check on my LinkedIn. You have a copy. You have a link to that. You can read it for yourself. You can look at the abstract. You see that, right? Right now, the integration of the renewable energy system, right? This will be the last slide. We move on. So integration of renewable system, I'm talking about this already. So here, there are a few challenges. I think I've said this ahead of time already, if you are following keenly. So I'm talking about there are certain challenges such as intermittency management, energy storage, and all that, right? So when you are looking about integration, you need to look at the voltage, you need to look at the frequency, right? Yes, it's very important. You know, wind is intermittent. And so if you're introducing wind into the traditional grid, just take it that there's a stable system. You are introducing a non-stable system. What do you think will happen? It will destabilize the system. So this is why in some countries, or in most African countries, we still have what we call the feed-in tariff policy not working, because the notion is that you are introducing impurity into the grid. Because if you now do the integration and your voltage and frequency doesn't match, you have an effect on the grid, right? So in some country, they will rather charge you for feed-in tariffs. So feed-in tariff means that, okay, I'm generating more than I'm getting more than what I need. So the excess, I'm sending it to the grid. I'll rather either get money or I'll get a credit back in terms of electricity, right? That policy is not working. So if I have solar, I've tied solar to the grid, maybe I need 5 megawatts and I'm generating 10 megawatts. I have an excess of 5 megawatts. That 5 megawatt I'm sent to the grid. Instead of the government paying me, or I'm getting a revenue in terms of electricity back when I need it, is the opposite. They're rather charging me, because the goal is, or the concept is that I'm introducing impurity, especially if your voltage level and frequency, all that. You get it? So there's a need to manage that. So we have the battery management system. Battery management can help you not to go too tight to the grid. So we can have a solar that is off grid. So you have a battery that stores the power, that stores the energy. In times where you are not generating, you can easily use from the battery, right? We have the off-grid, we have the on-grid and hybrid system. With on-grid, you can have the solar tied to the grid. Without electricity, without the national grid on, you still don't have power, even though you have solar, right? So that is cheaper. But if you want to go the off-grid, where you have the energy storage battery system, it's expensive, because battery comes with a lot of CAPEX, right? A lot of costs, right? Now, I want to look at some of the roles of smart energy system. We have smart grid, demand response, and energy management technology, optimize renewable energy utilization and grid stability. There's a course called renewable energy and smart grid. It's a very important course. You may want to do that. You may want to try. It's a very good course. It will broaden your mind about smart energy systems, right? We are not fully there yet, but we are trying to be there. When we are talking about smart system, it's about implantation of sensor into the system to autonomously regulate the system, right? Yes, so it's about autonomous system that is responsive, right? Demand response, demand load management response, right? And all that. Benefit of integrated system, you're looking at reliable power sources. For example, you have a solar together with wind, together with the national grid. You have 3 sources. So if the national grid is not there, you can switch to solar, you can switch to wind, right? And all that. So there's reliability. It's also reduced reliance on fossil fuels, reliance of energy disruption. You know, currently there's a lot of internet challenge going on. And also not only the internet challenge, there are also power fluctuation. I mean, all over. Telling about the power system, right? There are what we call IPPs, that also help to support the country's energy system, right? At times when there's no good fund management system, some of the IPP drop off from the system, and so they'll become a load on the national power system, right? And so at times some of this thing leads to what we call load shedding, or a case where this portion of the country receive power from maybe 10 a.m. to this. Yeah, they are now managing, they are sharing the thing because it's not enough. So they are sharing it. Okay, you Kaduna Estate have from 9 a.m. to maybe 3 p.m. Then Kachina Estate have from this to this, have from this hour. So it's about sharing the power because it's not enough. Now, some of the real world cases. Case 31, we have government policy promoting renewable energy in Nigeria, such as National Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency Policy, incentives, an incentive for renewable energy investment, support the transition to clean energy. So these are some of the real world cases. We also have case study 2, wind energy project in partnership with local communities. And this is called like collaborative wind farm development, such as the Leaky Wind Farm. Leaky Wind Farm, you can check on this Leaky Wind Farm, which involve local stakeholders and eventually contributing to renewable energy growth. So these are some of the real world impacts when it comes to renewable energy management system, right? We have technological advancement, we have adoption. This is the tomorrow's energy landscape. So tomorrow's energy landscape, we are looking at technological advancement such as innovation in renewable energy efficiency. We are looking at our global adoption, predicting increased integration of renewable energy into the mainstream energy system, right? So this is the tomorrow's energy landscape, right? It's very important. Those of you who are looking at where should I move, where is the future going? Of course, renewable energy is the future, and so you want to let's embrace the change. It's a change that has come to stay. We need to embrace the change. It's very important. And so to this end, that is about a brief presentation about renewable energy and energy management or energy efficiency, right? And so at half year, we do this every year. We get on board. We started with 60 fellows, and now we have 100 fellows, right? We move on every year. We try to increase a bit. The goal is to train, skill people in renewable energy. So we have PhD students, we have master students, we have young graduates who are in the program, right? We train them for 6 months. They undergo a lot of training in the renewable. We have international experts teaching them the renewable energy, the various forms of the renewable energy. And they also break in tracks. Some major in solar, some major in wind and all that, right? So you can consider, you can also look at the AFIA. You can recommend it to your friends in future and all that. You can also look at it yourself. So thank you very much. Let's embrace the change. It's about renewable energy and energy management. Thank you. At this point, I welcome question moderator. Fellows can now ask question. Thank you. Hello.
Hello, good, well done, ma. Are you?
All right.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for the class. Thank you so much, sir. So we'll be taking questions now from the participants. If you have a question, please kindly share your question. You can type it, or let's just do it this way. Just for 4 people, because of our time, we don't really have much time. We'll be taking the questions all together for our facilitator to take them together. So kindly unmute your microphone or use the reaction button to raise your hand so I can call you and you unmute your microphone and you ask your question as fast as possible, please. Let's have it, Abuja. Abuja, kindly unmute your microphone to ask your question, please. Sorry, Atairu Yusuf Dangana. Please, can you unmute your microphone and ask your question?
Are they maybe they are not able to unmute or something? They are not able to speak. So I have a question here.
I'll just read one of the questions out here from Ogebule Enoch from Lagos. He's asking that how about a situation whereby each state is required to manage its energy requirements? Do this still apply?
Okay, what still apply? What still apply? Can the person unmute and let me know what still apply? All right. So if he's talking about shedding, like the example I gave, that when there's no proper management, it can lead to sharing, right? Where maybe a Kaduna estate is receiving for some number of hours only, after which it goes off, right? So the goal is that I've given you example situation where which account for some of these things, right? So there you need to know, let's say in a country where maybe your energy requirement, let's say the total energy requirement for a country, for example, is 10 megawatt or 10 gigawatt. Now you are generating 9 gigawatt, meaning there's a deficit of 10. There's a deficit of 1, right? Right. There's a deficit of 1 gigawatt. And so that will lead to sharing. Another thing that can also cause that is that, so it means that either you are under generating, right? And what is causing that under generating? Probably there are some IPPs that are off because they don't have money to manage, pay their staffs any longer. Probably they don't have money to like they don't have money to pay their staff again, right? So system things become hard, so they are off the system. So there are few generating stations, right? So these are some of the things. Or there can also be a fault in the grid, which can also cause that, right? Yeah. So if the person can unmute and come cleanly, what exactly that applies would be helpful. There's a question that says that, okay, moderator, you can read out. I think there's a question that says, how do you use wind vane, right?
Yes, please go
How do you
ahead,
use how do you use wind vane to generate an energy in areas where there's no much wind, right? That's a good question. Now, when it comes to wind generation, there's this you need to know. That's what they call cut in wind and cut out wind. These are some of the key things you need to know. So before the citation of the plant, you need to do what we call assessment, site assessment. So from the site assessment, you know that, okay, the wind I have here is good for generation. Not all winds are good for generation. In fact, some wind will just destroy your plant. It will pull off the plant because it's out of the generating range. So you need to do analysis of the region to know whether the wind you have, the speed you have is ideal for generation. So that's what we call the cutting wind. So you do the analysis over time, not just one. You need to have consistency, do it over time. That's why I'm saying that the Kachina estate, there's a data on that, right? So you do for consistency, for you can even do a year or 6 months, and you see the consistency. Then it tells you that, okay, the wind I have here is good, is ideal. I can now site my plant here. Do you get it? Right. So in areas where there's no much wind, it's not about the much wind, it's about, do you have the ideal wind? You can have much wind, but it's not ideal. But the fact that wind is there, it doesn't make it that you should site plant there. You have to do analysis to know if that's the right type of wind. I hope that answers the question. Mancha, I hope that answers your question, Mancha. Right. Any other question?
So because of our time, because we really don't have much time right now,
Okay.
and the next come up, so I'm going to read 3 or 4 questions together for you to take
all right
minutes. So there's one from Plateau State, Akila Tuka, who says, I need more information about national grid and how it can be improved through renewable energy sources from private industries or individuals. And
Very
also,
good.
there's another question from sorry, a minute. I would love to take all the questions together. How will you know, from God doing one, who says, how will you know the speed of the wind that generates light?
Okay.
There's also one that says from Nura Humau Ibrahim, is Katsina wind vane working now? I need to go. Okay, sorry, I think that was not the question. That was just saying it. And there's also that says, how do you use, yes, the same question I said, how do you use wind vane to generate energy in areas where there is no much wind, which you have taken already? This one says from Aliyu Humar from Katsina, I need short explanation of hydroelectric energy. So I would love if you can take all the questions just in a minute so that we can wrap this session up. Thank you, Sam.
All right, that's good. Thank you, moderator. So when it comes to generation of hydro, it's simple. Basically, there is a dam. You have a dam which is hoarded with water. There's a water in the dam at a height. So we call it dam head. So for with force of gravity at that height, there is a flow from that height to a system called turbine, right? So as the water comes down to hit the turbine is vertically coupled to what we call a generator. So as the turbine rotates, as the water rotates the turbine indirectly rotates the rotating part of the generator, which we call the rotor. So as that rotation is going on, the rotor is sitting on what we call a stator. So as that rotation is going on, it's cutting across the stator windings of the stator. And that is what causes a generation of voltage according to the Faraday's electromagnetic induction law, right? And that generation of voltage, you will now collect that at the output of the generator and step it up with your step-up transformer to meet the national grid. Then you can now transmit the energy. I hope that is clear. So it's all about source of the energy, a system to transform the energy into a form you want it, then a conveyor system. That is all. Do you get it? So now the source is the hydro, that is the water. That's where you are getting the energy from. What is converting that, changing or want you to get what you want, that is the generating unit. It's called generator. Then there is a transmission unit, right? But before the transmission, the voltage level has to meet the transmission level. So there has to be a system to boost the voltage output of what you are getting. So for example, in Ghana, we have the output of the generator 14.4 kilovolt. So that is too low. So there is a transformer called a unit transformer that boosts that output to 161 to meet the national grid so that you can now transmit. In some part, we have 313 lines, kilovolt, right? Yeah, so I hope that is clear. If it's not clear, you can hit me up on LinkedIn. I can give you more explanation. You can send me chat. Now, I want to know how the speed of wind, how do you know the speed of the wind that generates light? Yes, so that's what I'm telling you, like you do analysis over time. We call it cutting wind. Cutting wind helps you to generate electricity. We have cutting wind and cut-out wind. The cut-out wind is not desired, but the cutting wind is the desired wind speed that will give you the required energy. Do you get it? So you do analysis. You go with your wind vane to know the direction, your anemometer to know your wind speed. Do you get it? So with these things, you can now know the wind speed and all that over time. You study over time, right? Maybe it can be 6 months, it can be a year, it can be more than that, right? The consistency so that you have a good system. I hope that is clear, right? And what was the last question? So 2 questions answered. What was the last question again? How do you use wind vane to generate energy in areas where there's no much wind? I think I've answered that already, right? Yeah. I hope that's clear.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. Yes,
so
I guess it's clear. And if it is not, we can kindly link you up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, they can link me up.
As much question as they want to.
Yeah.
And for the person that asked the question, if the session is going to be, if the slides is going to be shared, of course, it's going to be shared on your email. You have access to all the classes that you've had in the past. I want to say a very big thank you on behalf of the leadership of STSN. I want to say a very big thank you to you, Mr. Benjamin Gumado, for your enlightening presentation on renewable energy and energy management. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and insight, and which has provided us with valuable knowledge and inspiration to drive positive change in combating climate change. We are so grateful for your dedication to advancing sustainable solutions, and we look forward to applying the learnings that you taught us today from your sessions to our growth, to our environment, of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Benjamin. So without wasting our time, because we are really, really behind schedule already, our next speaker is set and she's ready to give it to us as they are. That is in person of Madam Oluwaseyi Ebenezer. Oh, sorry. Allow me, pardon me. I don't know if barista is the right word to use. I know her in the past because I think I've worked with her in one or two projects before. And when I say that we are about to have a good time, just take it as I say it. We are about to have a good time. So before I tell you what she will be taking us, let me give you a short profile about her so you can also have a brief on who our speaker is. Oluwaseyi Ebenezer is an accomplished legal professional with a rich and diverse expertise that encompasses international environmental law, gender studies, environmental safety and management, and human rights. Her skill set extends to sustainable development, climate change mitigation, community engagement, and waste management. As a seasoned advocate for environmental justice and policy change, she is a compelling communicator who champions ethical practices, particularly at the intersection of health, safety, and climate change. Our unwavering commitment revolves around advancing a resilient future through innovative strategies and collaborative initiatives. So, with this, please welcome with me with a round of applause, a virtual round of applause. Welcome on stage, Barrister Oluwaseyi Ebenezer. Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, please.
Can you all hear me? Okay.
Yes, we can hear you. Oh, good. We can see
and you
now.
can see me.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah. Okay, so hello, everyone. It's a pleasure. First of all, I want to appreciate the organizer of this event. I think it's a very fantastic one. So, and thank you for having me here today. I want to ask, I think I have one her, right? Janet? Okay, so I think I'm giving one her, and I have like 37 slides, so I don't know. I will try as much as possible to cover everything and carry everyone along. So I will just share my slide. Okay, so I believe everyone can see my slide. Can you all see my slide, please? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking on environmental laws and policies in Nigeria. I understand that you just finished a lecture on, I think, renewable energy, and we are talking about law now. So I hope I don't bore you too much. So, basically policies and laws, they are very important in everything we do. And the fact that we are all gathered here we are addressing a problem. And if we don't have laws and policies to kind of streamline or shape us in the solution to the problem, then there's going to be chaos. So that's why it's very imperative for us to have this discussion on environmental laws and policies. My name is Oluwaseyi Ebenezer, as I was introduced, and once again, thank you for having me. So before I move into the laws and policies, I want us to have a brief overview of Nigeria, because we're talking about environmental law and policies in Nigeria. So our focus is basically Nigeria. So what's the geography of Nigeria? Nigeria is located in the western part of Africa. It's bordered by Benin, Chad, Cameroon, and Niger. The demographic is I think we are more than 200 million right now, and it makes us the most populous country in Africa. So basically, our economy revolves around oil, and as climate change champions, we are always advocating to move away from oil. But right now, Nigeria is still very dependent on oil. Other area that we can say is impacting our economy is also telecommunication agriculture, and so on. So since we all know that oil play a very significant role in shaping our economy, and this also have a very negative impact on our environment. So it's imperative for us to have laws and regulations and policies to kind of guide the way we affect our activities, affect our environment. So we need to, sorry. Okay, so why is it that we're talking about environmental law? And basically we need to understand environmental law in Nigeria. So it encompasses a set of legal principles, statutes, regulations, and policy. It also involves international agreements and convention. But these international agreements and convention do not, because Nigeria is a sovereign state. And what I mean by being a sovereign state is no other country can influence us. They can't tell us what to do because we are a country on our own. But before all these international agreements and convention can really have impact or can affect us in Nigeria, Nigeria needs to have ratified these laws, these agreements and convention in our domestic laws. And with that, anybody that goes against such law, you can go to courts to enforce such law. But if Nigeria is not a signatory or they did not ratify such law, it just remain an international agreement and it's not enforceable in our country. So there are some environmental laws and agreements and conventions that Nigeria is a signatory to, and as well as Nigeria has ratified this law. That means they've domesticated this law. And this kind of law is enforceable in Nigeria. For instance, you all know the UNFCCC, that's the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Most countries are signatory to this convention, and they've also come down to their own country to domesticate it. And so all the climate change laws and policies that we're having is as a result of Nigeria being a signatory, and also the fact that they've ratified this convention into our domestic law. So all in all, I'm just trying to say that our sets of environmental law include legal principles, statutes, regulations, policies, and also international agreements and convention. So okay. I'm sorry. Technology sometimes is crazy. Okay, I'm trying to kind of, okay, so okay, so the purpose of understanding environmental laws in Nigeria, I'm just trying to kind of give a background into what I'm going to be discussing. I just don't want to move straight into environmental laws and regulations. So it's very important that I lay a little background on why it's important for us to discuss environmental law and why you need to understand why it's important to have these laws and regulations. Okay. Okay. So the first one, sorry, you have to excuse me. I think something is blocking my screen, and I'm trying so much to kind of remove it so that I can see properly. Okay. Sorry. Okay, it's not going away, so I'll just have to make do. So I can see my first purpose So, but I'm just going to speak to it. So the first one is we have laws and we have environmental laws and policy to help ensure that our environment is sustainable. So without laws and policies in place, people will do as they like. For example, if there's no law on waste disposal, on proper waste disposal, or there's no proper enforcement on probably waste disposal. So anybody can just go to, you can go in front of the villa and just dump your waste there because there's no law, there's no regulations that is restraining you from doing this. And that is why it's very important for us to have laws and policies in place. Also, it helps us establish mechanism for preventing environmental degradation, policies, and all that. One of the story I'm going to talk about later in my presentation is this incident that happened in 1988, which informed the reason why Nigeria has to spring into action of having effective environmental law. And that is the cocoa incident. I don't know if some of you have heard about it. So because we do not have on ground environmental law, it was easy for an industry to just come into Nigeria and dump this hazardous waste in a community called cocoa. And that is why it's very imperative in everything, generally, we need to have policies and laws in place to kind of restrain human activities. We are created to just do things excessively. So if we don't have policies and law in place, then the whole country will just be a mess. Also, environmental law helps safeguard health and well-being, and it also promotes clean and healthy environments. It facilitates compliance with international environmental agreements and conventions, like the one I spoke about, UNFCCC. With these agreements, we are able to have a direction on how to position Nigeria properly when we come to climate change discussion. Environmental law also protects transparency, accountability, and stakeholders' participation in environmental decision. So it's very important that when these laws and policies are made, they have to consult the relevant stakeholders because they have to bring in their inputs for us to be able to create a very effective environmental law. So this help involves stakeholders in decision making and the rest. I've spoken about importance of environmental regulations. Like I was saying, it also addresses the consequence of rapid urbanization, population growth, and industrial activities. We are 200 million right now, and we are predicted to go way over 200 million. And this is going to have a very great impact on the environment. The more with the population increases, the more urbanization we have, and also the more industrial activities. And this will lead to major environmental degradation and all other environmental effects. So it's very important for us to have policies, regulations, and law to prevent or minimize the impact. It also helps preserve Nigeria's rich biodiversity and unique ecosystem for future generation. So what's the overview of my presentation? I'm going to I've dived a little bit into the historical context, but I'm going to also speak a bit, especially on the incident, the cocoa incident that leads to the transformation of environmental laws and policies in Nigeria. Then I'm going to highlight key environmental challenges. I'm going to discuss regulatory framework that are in place and also explore ongoing efforts and future path towards environmental sustainability. So the historical context. You all agree with me that before industrialization, before the colonial era, people live in harmony with the environment. At that time, the major activities that brings in money is agriculture, and there was harmony in the community. So people see environments as very sacred. At that time, we have, there's this forest that you must not enter because it's sacred. Maybe there's this water, you can't kill fish inside because it's a sacred water, or you can't go to the stream to fetch the water because it's sacred. All this, in a way, help our environment. It helps people from degrading the environment. And at this time, it was very important. People cherish nature. So everything lies within nature. And at that point, the agriculture that was practiced is also sustainable because there was no chemical fertilizers or all this kind of fertilizers used during agricultural practices right now. And also the type of system that were practiced then was crop rotation, mixed farming, and people use organic fertilizer. So all these do not have any impact towards our environment. The community also, like I spoke, they have community conservation. There are some forests that you must not enter, water that you must not fetch from, and all those like. In this era, people were in good relationship with the environment, and there was nothing like probably environmental degradation, the level of environmental degradation that we're experiencing today. So, post-colonial industrialization and urbanization, there was a shift in paradigm. With colonization came shift in community-driven conservation to state-driven conservation. Natural resources were extracted in a way that they don't really care about the environment. All they care about is the economy that they will get, or the money that they will get, that the state will get from extracting the natural resources, compared to the pre-colonial, where people were very conscious of the way they relate with the environment. Then we have rapid urbanization. People want to move from the community to the city, and this in effect is impacting the dimension of the city. There should be more houses, and also industry started springing up, leading to industrial waste and all forms of waste generation that's, and pollution that's one way or the other affects our environment. And also, I also want to speak about waste disposal in the pre-colonial era, and also after the pre-colonial, that's the post-colonial era. During the pre-colonial era, everything was community driven. So the way they handled their waste was more communal. I don't know if one or two of you have experienced some of the issues we are facing today. Some people will build their houses and they will block their gutter. They don't want the other house wastewater to pass through their gutter. So all this makes it cuts across. It makes us see that there is no community-driven approaches when we are talking about environmental issues. People do not want to come together to tackle environmental issues, and this issue can only be solved by community-driven approaches. Also, at that time, I've spoken about the fact that people use organic waste. I don't want to waste too much time on this. So also the nature of waste, decomposition, most of the waste that are used at that time are biodegradable. With most of the, if they want to cover any food, they use leaves, which are biodegradable. Also, probably they want to use any material, they use wood or bones to construct it. This time there was no plastic, and so people made use of biodegradable materials, which really helped the environment. So during this time, there were minimal environmental impacts. The natural and organic nature of waste meant lower environmental impact. So at this time, there was very low environmental impact, and there was no reason for, all the cry for environmental protection and all that. Also, they use circular economy. So when we say circular economy or circular system, it has always existed. During our forefather, the food they eat, they don't throw it away. They turn it into compost and every other things like that. So because they don't have any alternative, they need to make use of what they have to get what they want. So at this time, they were circular, they practiced more of circular economy. Then there was community bonding as well, like I explained earlier. So what are the primary threats to Nigerian natural environment? We have oil spill and pollution. This is one of the greatest menace that Nigeria is going through when we talk about environmental degradation in the country. Over a few decades, thousands of oil spill incidents have been recorded, releasing millions of barrels of oil into the environment. For instance, we have the Shell Bonga oil spill in 2011, ExxonMobil in 2008. All this affects both the aquatic life and terrestrial life as well. When you can see from the picture here, I don't think anything can grow on this land anymore. So when this happen, when pollution, oil spill happen, it affects the water, it affects the land, it affects human as well. We have communities that they drive them into food insecurity. They don't have good water to drink from oil spill pollution. Then another menace is deforestation. There are lots of agricultural practices that, before the start, they deforest the land so much that it affects the biodiversity. It affects all the natural resources or all the biodiversity that lives in that particular area. We also have biodiversity loss from pollution, from deforestation. We have climate change, and then flooding and erosion. So what are the consequences of, I don't want to go too much into this so that I can move into the policy. We have impacts of pollution, plastic. Another menace is plastic pollution. All of you understand what plastic pollution and the problem it is giving to us as a country, even on the global level. It affects the aquatic life, affects terrestrial life. I remember I watched a documentary not quite long ago where they experimented on the fish, and it was discovered that the fish has a lot of micro plastic. And that means that as we are consuming the fish, the element of microplastic is also going into our body. And that's why we have lots of diseases, emerging diseases that is affecting us lately. So plastic pollution is another menace that the country is battling. So we move into policies and law now. The evolution of Nigerian policy, of environmental law and policy in Nigeria. Like I stated earlier, the cocoa incident of 1988. Prior to 1988, all the environmental laws and policies in Nigeria are kind of derivative in the sense that we don't have a proper environmental law in the country. Most of our environmental law are derived from probably some international agreements that Nigeria is a signatory or a party to. So because we don't have our own environmental law, there was no environmental agencies that could take up the enforcement or the implementation when a problem happened. So this cocoa incident, it happened that there's a country in Italy that came into Nigeria to dispose their waste. And at that time, Africa was a dumping ground. All this industry from, industry from developed country, their waste, they just bring it into Africa and dump it. But the cocoa incident was different because the waste that they brought into Nigeria was actually hazardous waste. And they tagged it non-hazardous. So it was dumped in a community in Delta called Cocoa. And after the Italian company dumped this waste, some few days later, people in that community started dying. The water, the aquatic life too was affected. The children started dying. Pregnancy, women started having stillborn and all that. So it was discovered that it was this waste that was dumped in their community that caused that. And this really caused a lot of outcry from Nigerians and also international body. And because Nigerians at that time do not have any agency to come into the place to, because right now you know that we have like Federal Ministry of Environment, we have NESRIA. Those are agencies that can, step into action immediately and kind of curb such a problem. But as at that time, there was no agency because we don't have environmental law in Nigeria. So this led Nigeria into quickly coming together to create environmental law, and also it kind of drove Nigeria into knowing how important environmental law and policy is in a country. It also marked the era of environmental consciousness in the nation. So it was a real turning point for Nigerian regulation, and it was pivotal to the enactment of comprehensive legislation for environmental protection. So before then, before 1988, what we have in Nigeria that is related to environmental law and policy was Factory Act Oil in Navigation, Navigable Water Regulation of 1968, Oil Pipeline Act. You could see that everything is related to oil because that's one of the major way that Nigeria economy is driven at that time. So you could see petroleum drilling production, petroleum refinery regulation, everything oil, oil, oil. So there was no law or policy on probably waste, on how to dispose waste properly, or making Nigeria not a dumping ground, law against illegal dumping of waste in Nigeria. There was no such law. So after 1988, Nigeria enacted Federal Environmental Protection Act, FEPA, and this also creates an agency that will act under the act as well. But before I go into the act, I have to talk about the Constitution, because the Constitution is the ground law. Constitution is the overall law that covers any other law in the country. And our Constitution do not create environmental rights. Environmental issues reflected in the part of the Constitution, giving the states the power to protect and improve environmental issues in the states. However, there is no enforceable, if your right to environment is infringed, you can't address it in court because our Constitution do not legally recognize people's right to environment compared to some countries in the world. We have at least 177 countries that granted constitutional rights of environment. And also in Africa, we have countries like Benin, Ethiopia, Niger, Mali, Cameroon, South Africa, Togo, Burkina Faso, and Kenya that gives citizens rights to environment. So in those countries, when your right to environment is infringed, you could actually approach the courts for a redress. But in Nigeria, no such thing. So the environmental right or environmental issue is in the concurrent list, which gives the states the authority or the power to make environmental law. However, because it's not an enforceable right, you cannot hold them responsible if they do not make laws on environment. So the chapter provided for environmental protection by the states, but it's only a persuasive, it does not possess a binding force. So if you're in a state and probably you are, for instance, in all those countries, in all those states that are tackling oil spillage and all that, they can't hold their states responsible that there should be a law on this or that. The states can only decide to do it at their own free will, because environmental protection is not, does not fall into an enforceable right under our Constitution. So the FEPA after 1988 Nigeria enacted the Federal Environmental Protection Act, which also created Federal Environmental Protection Agency. The FEPA Act has been repealed, and it's now the NESRIA Act of 2007. And under the NESRIA Act, there are lots of regulations under this act. We have regulation on environmental protection, on abatement of industrial and facility generating waste. So this regulation deals with industry and how they dispose their waste. We have on national environmental protection on solid waste and hazardous waste. This deals with how solid and hazardous waste are being handled. We have on electrical and electronic sector. We have on healthcare waste. We have on sanitation and waste control. All these regulations are under the NESRIA Act of 2007. So, sorry, I need to kind of end. Okay. So I needed to reduce, to change my slide from the previous view so that I could see my presentation properly. So sorry if it affects anything. So please bear with me. So as I was saying, we have the Environmental Impact Assessment Act of 1992, which is generally called the EIA. Section 2 of the EIA provides that the public and private sector of the economy shall not undertake or embark on any authorized projects or activities without prior consideration of the effect on the environment. You have to understand that before you embark on any project, it could be, or before a state could embark on any project, probably construction of bridge or construction of a facility, maybe a gas facility or even mast for telecommunication. They need to do environmental impact assessment. And this is because you need to look at how the project will affect the environment in that area. For instance, you want to construct, let's say MTN wants to construct a mast in your community. They need to come in and do impact assessments to see how that is going to affect the biodiversity of the area. Probably the facility is going to generate any kind of waste and how they intend to manage that waste. Probably the facility is going to affect the stream in that area. You know, there should be a comprehensive environmental impact assessment so that the facility or the project will not affect the environment or we minimize the impacts on the environment. And lately, it has even gone further to also include social impacts, where probably there's a community located in that particular area. You need to show that your project or your facility will not affect the community or the livelihood of that community in that particular area. So that's another very important environmental law that we have in Nigeria. We also have the Harmful Waste Special Criminal Provision Act of 1988. So after the cocoa incident, when Nigeria, like I told you, quickly went straight into action to enact the Federal Environmental Protection Act, and as well as enacted the Harmful Waste Special Criminal Provision Act of 1988. And this makes it criminal for anybody or for any individual, any company or any country to come into Nigeria and dump any kind of waste, especially hazardous waste, without the consent of the government. So it's the law quickly makes it criminal act for such incidents. And it's also a way of protecting the country from experiencing such a very terrible incidents in future. So we also have the National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, the NOSDRA. The NOSDRA agency, which the HACs created the agency, and they are majorly responsible for anything oil spill or oil-related events in Nigeria. We have the Oil in Navigable Act. We have the Nigerian Mineral and Mining Act. This law deals with mining operation in Nigeria. Then we have Associated Gas Reinjection Act. Okay, so there are also some policies that are helping to shape our environment in Nigeria. Policies such as national policies on environment. Policies are different from law. And policy is kind of persuasive. You can't, unless a state come to effect a law using national policy. Without that, policies are just there to guide or to kind of show direction on how to relate when it comes to environment. So this national policy on environment of 2016 ensures that environmental protection and conservation of natural resources for sustainable development. Its strategic objective is to coordinate environmental protection and natural resources conservation for sustainable development. So these are policies that kind of show direction for, for laws and acts to be implemented in states. So a state could pick a national policy and enact a law using, or enact a policy using the national policy. So there's also a national policy on municipal and agricultural waste management. There is policy on environmental sanitation. It provides acceptable level of environmental sanitation to enable Nigerian citizens achieve socially and economically productive life. It serves as a veritable instrument for safeguarding quality environments for good health and social well-being. There's a policy on chemical management of 2010. There's a policy on healthcare waste management. There's a policy on solid waste management, which categorize all forms of solid waste into solid, liquid, gaseous. And it also ensures that waste managers perform their duty with highest degree of responsibility and accountability. Then there's national policy on plastic life cycle of 2019. It was developed to drive resources efficiency and cleaner production and protection of environments, as stated under Section 20 of the Constitution. The national policy on plastic also help give a direction towards how states can effectively tackle plastic waste menace in their state. And I think that the recent single-use plastic ban in Lagos, it was, although I think because they didn't really engage the stakeholders, it's on hold right now. But that particular policy was made using the national policy on plastic life cycle management of 2019. That also, I mean, I've spoken, remember initially under NESRA and FEPA Act that I spoke about regulations under NESRA. So environmental regulations, they are published in the Federal Republic Official Gazette, and they are currently in force, such as the National Environmental Wasteland Riverbank Landshore Regulation. It provides for the conservation and wide use of wetlands in Nigeria. We have National Environmental Watershed Mountainous Hilly Catchment Area Regulation of 2009. This provision provides protection for water catchment area. There's regulation on sanitation and waste of 2009. I'd mentioned that earlier under NESRA. We have National Environmental Permitting and Licensing System. I think recently Nigeria is looking into bringing in some new regulation under this permitting and licensing, looking at how they can look into the law and make it more enforceable. Because it's 2009, and now we're in 2024. So they need to relook into it and see how they can bring other laws into it to make it more enforceable and implementable. So we also have the National Environmental Access to Genetic Resources and Benefits Sharing. The overall purpose of this regulation is to regulate the access to and use of generic resources to ensure regeneration and sustainability of threatened species. Nigeria also have national environmental mining and processing of coal. This deals with pollution from mining and processing of coal. Then we have national environmental ozone layer protection. There are other regulations. We have food and beverages regulation of 2009. We have on textile, leather, footwear industry. We have on noise control and standard of 2009. And the main objective is to ensure tranquility of the human environment and surrounding and their psychological well-being. We have a regulation on chemical, pharmaceutical, soap, detergents, manufacturing industry of 2009. And it's to prevent and minimize the pollution from operation from all this sector. There are other regulations, for telecommunication, for soil erosion and flood, for desertification and drought, for base metal, steel, recycling industry. We have for control of bush burning, forest fire as well. Regulation on endangered species, regulation on industrial plastic, rubber, and foam sector, regulation on coastal and marine area protection. I don't want to go too, because of our time, I don't want to go too deeply into it. I don't know if the organizer will share the slide after the presentation. Then we have regulation on control of vehicular emission from petrol and diesel engine. The purpose of this regulation is to restore, preserve, and improve quality of air. So we also have on construction sector, which regulates the activities of construction in Nigeria. We have regulation on non-metallic mineral manufacturing industry, regulation on surface groundwater quality control. We have regulation on electric and electronic sector. We have regulation on quarry and blasting operation. So all the road construction that you see people blasting rock for road construction, there are regulation that is also guiding their operation. Then we have regulation on control of alien and invasive species. This help prevent the decline, minimize the modification and destruction of our ecosystem. The regulation on paper, wood products, regulation on motor vehicle, miscellaneous assembly. We have, and this regulation is for facility or company that are assembling a vehicle in Nigeria. So there's this regulation protecting or preventing them from polluting our environment through their waste. So we have National Environmental Air Quality Control Regulation of 2021 amended. The purpose is to provide for improved control of our nation's air quality to such an extent that would enhance the protection of flora and fauna in Nigeria. We also have regulation on control of charcoal production and exports. The objective of this regulation are to protect Nigerian ecosystem from depletion arising from cocoa production and handling. We have regulation on dams and reservoir. We have regulation on hazardous chemicals and pesticide of 2014. We have regulation on energy sector regulation. The purpose of this regulation is to prevent or minimize pollution and encourage energy efficiency in all operation and ancillary activities of the energy sector in achieving sustainable economic standard. So we have, if you look at all the regulation that I listed, it's a lot. And you start to wonder that, okay, do Nigeria really have all these regulations touching practically all sector? And we are still battling with environmental challenges. We are still battling with pollution. We are still battling with indiscriminate waste disposal. We are still battling with climate change and all other environmental issues. So it shows that there's a need for effective implementation and for people, public awareness of this regulation, laws and acts. Because I understand that most people do not even know that we have all these regulations, that we have all these environmental acts and policies in place. So, and that's part of the reason why we are having this discussion. And that's why I also want to appreciate the organizer for putting into the Masterclass environmental law and policy as a class on its own. Like I stated earlier when I was starting my presentation, that's also part of what inform our environmental law and policy are international laws, international agreements and conventions. So this convention also also impacts our environmental laws and policies in Nigeria. So we have United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, which regulates the greenhouse gases that every country is emitting yearly. So you all know the CAAP that we attend every year, the UNFCCC convention. So it's kind of makes every country, they have a kind of what every country must follow every year, and also show that they are doing in order that each country show that the activity they are undertaking to show that they are kind of reducing their greenhouse gases. We have the Paris Agreement, which Nigeria ratified as well in 2017, which encourages all signatory to the agreement to reduce their greenhouse gases emission well below 1.5 or well below 2.0 degree, and also be able to reach 1.5 degree. We also have convention on biodiversity, biological diversity. Nigeria became a party in 1994. We have the Kyoto Protocol. Nigeria ratified that in 2004. We have the Montreal Protocol on substance that deplete the ozone layer. This is, if you I think 3 slides backward, I spoke about a regulation on ozone layer. It was domesticated as a regulation following the Montreal Protocol on substance that depletes ozone layer. So that means Nigeria had ratified and domesticate this protocol. Then we have the Basel Convention on Control of Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste. This Nigeria has signed and ratified and domesticates this law, preventing other country or individual or companies from coming into Nigeria and dumping hazardous waste. So what are the hurdles in realizing environmental policies? You could see that we have a lot and lots and lots of policies. We have lots of laws and acts in Nigeria. But what are the reasons why we don't even know about this acts or law or policies or regulations? Or why is it not enforceable? Why is it not properly implemented in Nigeria? Number one is nature of conflicts. We have different bodies acting as agency for all this law. So for instance, we have NISRA and NOSDRA. NOSDRA is basically for anything relating to oil. while NESRA is on any issue relating to environment. But there are some situations where there's an intersect in their regulation. So the law creating NESRA empower them to handle anything environment. But when there's a oil spill, who is the proper agency that has to go in and enforce or look at why there's an oil spill? So there's always an issue, or there's always this intersection between both agencies, and this has always impacted the easy enforceability of all this law, or the easy implementation of all this law. So because they have unclear boundary, it hampers the effective policy execution. Also, a lot of valuable time and resources are spent on resolving internal disputes rather than addressing environmental issues. There's also an issue of corruption and lack of transparency, that most times environmental issues are like on the very low parts of government agencies. So when they are making budgets and all that, environmental issues do not, fall at the very high level. So they see environment as something not immediate compared to other problems. So and most times, even the money allocated to this agency, there are a lot of misappropriation of funds. There's a lot of, bribery, especially, for instance, when we're talking about environmental impact assessments, a lot of facilities, a lot of projects do not undergo environmental impact assessments. They one way or the other, bribe the relevant agency and they get their certificates. And all these are affecting the realization of environmental policies and solving environmental problem in Nigeria. We also have infrastructure and capacity building need. Inadequate facility for waste management, for instance, or pollution control, or even there's no structure in place for monitoring. All these infrastructure gap leads to lack of implementation of all the effective implementation of all this policy. Also, there's a very huge capacity gap. The people that are involved in, implementing all this policy, they don't really understand these environmental issues. So training and skill development for environmental personnel is lacking. And also there's very limited public awareness campaign and education on environmental issues. Most the citizens, as well as individuals that are working in this space, they don't really understand these environmental issues, and this make it very difficult for them to even implement all this policy effectively. So there is also lack of political will. Like I said earlier, environmental issues is always, dropped to the very low part of the table when we talk about governments, when governments are discussing, because they see environmental issue as not very immediate problem. So there's always this lack of political will for money to be, channeled into the agency that are dealing with environmental issue, or for capacity, to build the capacity of people working in the space. We also have economic interest. Powerful industry might resist change that affects profitability, even if these changes are environmental beneficial. And this happened on the global level as well. We could see how all these oil producing companies are channeling lots of millions of dollars into making sure that a country do not transit to clean energy. So any environmental policy that will affect the profitability of countries or of company involved in it, they try as much as possible to make sure that it is not implementable, or the agency do not enforce such law. There's also insufficient funding. I've spoken about that. There's bureaucratic red tape. Over complex administration processing can lead to execution of beneficial environmental delay in execution of environmental projects. There's some policies for instance, let me give you a good instance. For instance, if you want to get, you want to build you have a project and you need environmental impact assessment certification. So the process of getting the certification is not very straightforward. And sometimes you could use more than 6 months for you to be able to get the certification. And all this delay can lead to people exploring the shorter passage by bribing this agency to get such certification. So we also have weak enforcement mechanism. I've spoken about that. Then there's the information and knowledge gap. Absence of proper comprehensive data and research can also hinder the formulation of the effectiveness of the policies. When generally Africa, developing country lack data and research on all this problem. And when we have such a gap, it will lead to improper implementation of policies and law. Then we have lack of awareness. I've spoken about awareness. There's a huge gap. Majority of all these government officials do not properly understand all these environmental issues. And if they are the ones to enforce such policies and law, then there's a big problem because you can't even enforce what you don't understand properly. So that's part of the orders to the implementation of environmental policy in Nigeria. Then we have the cultural and traditional practices. There's some culture that they have the way they do things. So when all this law come into force, it's kind of destroy the culture they know. So with that, people don't tend to change. So all these laws and policies and regulation, they don't own it. So they continue to do what they understand, what their culture or traditional practices entail. So, and this kind of also impacts the environment, the effective implementation of all these laws and policies. So what are the solutions or paving the way for greener future? We have promoting circular economy. So we must, and this involve every one of us. This involve all sector. We move from traditional linear economy, that is make, use, and dispose, to a circular economy where resources are reused, recycled, and repurposed. Then there should be urban greening, introduction of rooftop garden, vertical farming, tree planting initiative in cities to combat urban heat and promote biodiversity. There should be enhanced public transport, to reduce air pollution and also climate change. There should be green building standard. We have laws on how our projects or how our facility will not impact the environment, but there's no green standard on how we should construct our building. So there's a need for that. Then there's a need for agricultural shift. The way we farm these days, it's not sustainable and it affects our environment. So there's a need for agricultural shift, and this can only be attained, or this can only be achieved by also educating people that are involved in farming. Then there's also need for water conservation initiative. There's a need for ecotourism. There's a need to support renewable energy. And there's a need to educate and engage youth. There's a need to educate the public. There's a need for capacity building of people involved in this policy enforcement. There's a huge need to develop their capacity. There's a huge need to invest in infrastructure. That there are places where you will have all this, for instance, under waste management, there are cities where ordinarily the waste compactor truck shouldn't be the real vehicle that they are supposed to use. but probably all the small vehicles to be able to navigate into the inner city to collect their waste. But because of knowledge gap, because they don't really understand the process of waste collecting, they invest so much in compactor, and at the end of the day, they don't achieve the cleanliness or achieve waste management in such cities. So there's a huge need for capacity building. There's a huge need for environmental education and youth engagement. There's a huge need for people to understand all these policies, regulations, and law, and for people to even know that there are these policy, regulations, and laws in place, so that whatever activities they are engaging in, they will be able to bring in the proper policy that relates to such activity. So I want to end my presentation with this quote by Gina McCarthy. She said, policy is driven by more than just politics. It is driven by people and their priority. So McCarthy quote is a reminder that while politicians and governments make policy, the voice and priority of the people have a significant role in shaping the direction and nature of this policy. It's a call for active public engagement and a recognition of the power of collective will in shaping policy direction. So what the quote is trying to say is the government can make policies, the government can make law, but if we citizens do not even understand this law, if we do not know about this law, there's no way we're going to shape the direction and nature of this policy. So it's important for us to know the law and policy that relates to whatever activity we are carrying out or we are involved in for us to be able to shape and achieve a sustainable environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Please, can we give our barrister a virtual round of applause? Thank you so much, ma'am. We really appreciate you for your informative presentation on environmental law. Please, because of our time, we'll not be able to take many questions. We'll just be able to take just 2 questions quickly from the participants, which we would like to take them together so our speaker can quickly get to them together and we can round up because of our time, please. Just 2 questions. Okay, Victoria Wani from Lagos said, this is the most insightful class I have attended. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Please, I would like to ask a question. Or you can please raise your hand with the reaction via the reaction button so we can take your question. Okay. Let me see if we have questions there.
Okay, so I think there's a question. I can see the question in the chat. Just to be clear, there are no enforceable environmental law, right? So can I go ahead and answer that?
Yes, of course, ma'am. Yes, of course.
Okay, so I will reply by just to be clear, right? I'm not saying that there's no enforceable environmental that you can't enforce environmental law in courts. What I'm saying is, as a person, as an individual, there are some countries where you have environmental rights. So if your right is impacted, just as we have right to life in our constitution. So if somebody's right to life is affected, you could go to the courts to get how do they call it? To get I'm sorry, I don't know that. So all I'm saying is it's enforceable in the law courts. So for environmental rights, we in Nigeria do not have environmental rights. So if my right to environment is infringed, I can't go to the court law and say, oh, I need to enforce this because my right has been infringed. We do not have constitutional environmental rights. However, with the laws that we have, environmental law we have, you could probably for instance, if you have a facility that's supposed to do environmental impact assessment, and you notice that, oh, their production or whatever is affecting the environment, and you notice that they did not do the proper environmental impact assessment, or probably they used the shortcuts by bribery, you could sue them to court and say they impact your community. And so you could sue them for so amounts of naira because they did not do the proper, they did not follow the proper law by doing the proper environmental impact assessment. So that's what I'm trying to say. But personally, Nigerians do not have rights to healthy, clean environment in our constitution. Thank you.
Please allow me, on behalf of the leadership of SDSN Nigeria, to say a very big thank you to you, Barrister Oluwaseyi Ebenezer, for sharing your expertise and insight into legal framework of environmental protection. Thank you for sharing with us deeper understanding of the legal avenues available to address environmental challenges. We really appreciate your commitment to advocating for environmental justice, and we look forward to integrating your insight into our effort to promote sustainability. Thank you so much, Ma. We really appreciate. So, to the participants, a link has been shared on the. Kindly find the link to the attendance form on the chat box. Please ensure that you fill the attendance before you leave the class, because that's where marks that you really attended this class. Because if you do not fill it, it will mean that you are not part of this class. Please, we need to fill the attendance. It is very important. On this note, at this juncture, allow me to bring into the room to round it up for us as we say bye and enjoy our wonderful holiday. Please, Mr. Emmanuel, please take over from here. Mr. Emmanuel. So two links were sent. One cannot accept a response, so, but I sent another one. Please find the second one. There are two links there. The second one accepts response. Please use the second one where I tagged kindly use this. It is at the chat box, please. Mr. Emmanuel, please.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Janet. And let me start by appreciating Madam Oluwaseyi for this insightful session. Good afternoon, Madam Sheyi. It's good to have you on the call, and it's been an engaging one indeed. And I believe each and every participant had the value for their time and in-depth knowledge. Quickly, I would just like to, I know that to attend to some questions, and also to share some brief information regarding the phase 2 and phase 3 of the program. And for those of us that are having one challenge or concern, specifically, we can just use the Q&A session to drop that. We hope this is going to be very brief. Okay. I can see one comment from Marachi already. Okay, Ogechi Godwin. You said the access to material were released today and assessment is scheduled on 30th. I think the space is not really convenient. Oh, okay. And what am I to say to that now? It's important for us to ensure that each and every session gets to watch it. And that's why we always set YouTube link at the end of every recording commencement of every week. So let me just say that the assessment is not something that's very serious. Like you're writing a GRE exam or ITS exam. It's something that within the masterclass session which you've had. Even if you don't read for the assessment tomorrow, and we've attended all the masterclass session, I can assure you, you can still have an average score. So not to talk about if you go through the videos, you just watch through the videos. I think we have 6 sessions or thereabouts.
Sorry, that was my network. I think I'm back now. Like I was saying, if at all you don't even read at all, you didn't watch the videos, you are not watching the videos again, you can still have a very good score in that assessment, and you still have enough time to revise whatever you are learning. But most importantly, the reason why this assessment is very compulsory is for you to evaluate the impact, how you've been able to comprehend the learning from the very first week till date. So that's why they call it assessment. And talking about the form of the assessment, like I said, it's going to be a virtual assessment which you are going to be having, and it's going to start 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. So please try as much as possible to ensure that you are prepared for this. And for no reason should you miss this assessment. I mean, for no reason, except if you are going to, like I said in one session recently, except if you are going to be on flight, you're already booked a flight at that particular moment. I know there are instances you have people like that, and they get to share information and share updates that they have a flight to catch at that particular moment. So, but if your case is not like that, please ensure you don't miss the assessment, because it's by the assessment and also your attendance, that's what the program managers are going to use to grade you to the second phase, and the successful participants are going to be notified on Monday. So that's the first thing I'm to say. And the other one, which I'm also going to speak as regards this program, is the submission, which they've shared the submission link with all initially, and the closing date for that link is going to be 30th, if I'm correct, or 31st, if I'm correct. But most importantly, ensure that you submit your proposal. I can say a little fraction of people on this call have done that. And it's very important for each and every one of you to do that, because that's also the next phase, that's the next thing to get done. Assessment is 10 a.m. Please read your email. And the link for assessment is going to be sent to you tomorrow morning. It might be close to 10 a.m. Just keep a tab on your email. And once they send the assessment link to you, once it's 9:55, you can sign in to start reviewing the question. And once it's 10:30, the assessment is going to end. Please, I want to appeal to each and everyone on this call that try as much as possible to ensure that you have a stable network, if not a backup. So the same thing is applicable to your device. Ensure you have a good device, and it's just 30 minutes. And like I said, you might even spend like 15 minutes on that assessment, it might not be more than 15 minutes or thereabouts. So those are the basic information that I have to share regarding the assessment. Maybe I should just take more questions before I address other issues and other area of concern. I can see Eniola's hand up. Eniola, can you unmute your mic and ask your question? Eniola, can you unmute your mic and ask your question? Okay, Eniola, you can unmute your mic and ask your question, please, if you are there. Or Emanuela, you can unmute your mic and ask your question.
Good morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good afternoon.
No, good morning.
And let's have
Okay,
Eniela
sir.
first, Emanuela.
Okay, sir. Okay, so like 2 weeks ago, my network was like very, very bad. So I was actually logged out. I tried logging in again, but I could not log in. And so I missed marking my attendance that day. Because I immediately, even when the class was still ongoing, I had to send a mail I sent a mail to the the address, but then I didn't get any response. And I understand that even it's going to look as if I missed that class and it will probably affect my attendance. I know that it's actually crucial to move on to the next stage.
Okay.
That's why I'm really concerned.
You said 2 weeks ago, did you attend the class for last week?
Yes. Yes,
And you
I
attended
did.
today?
Yes.
And you attended the first session, right?
The orientation or masterclass one.
So you just missed one session, so you don't have anything to be worried about. It's only if you missed all the sessions, and I think that's just it. So if yours is attendance, that's fine. That's fine. And you already sent an email regarding that day. Same thing applies to me, Adelaide Precious. You guys are just ensure you are participating in the assessment. I can see a lot of hands up. I don't want this call to exit 12:30. And because of our Muslim brethren, we want to go and pray. Can we make it very, very fast? I want it and everyone to ask their question. Okay, let's have Emanuela, then we have Kende.
Hi,
Come
good day,
to you
sir.
now. Emanuela, just
All right,
yeah,
so it's about, my question is about the project we should the project we're to do, right? Would it be a problem if I am partnering with and other environmental organizations to do my projects? Like, I've submitted my proposal. I am going to do awareness and sensitization for people on the streets and markets with people. Is it a problem if I am partnering with other organizations to do this?
no, that should not be a problem. It's something that whatever it's going to make you achieve what you want to achieve, and it's still within the appropriate procedure, that shouldn't be a problem. So you can go ahead. Okay, Kende, can you unmute your mic and ask the question?
Okay, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So my question is still based on that assessment because I also saw the email this morning. So I'm not going to be available tomorrow as well. I might not be on flight, but I'm actually going to be busy tomorrow because I have a volunteer campaign that I have to be on, and I'm the media coordinator for that. So for those of us that are not on flight but also have something scheduled for tomorrow and the assessment is by 10, how can you make that? Because it's quite possible that I might not make it. So what can you do? Because I know you guys said we can't do the assessment again. So does that mean that we are being cut off? Because I've not missed any class so far, and this is just the one I'm going to be missing, which is the assessment. So Please, what is it can you do for us? Because that is a major problem. I have to be there tomorrow because I'm also part of the major people in the team in charge of the program. So that is one of my major problems right now.
I understand your perspective. I understand your situation, Kende. And what I will say is, try as much as possible to see how you can engage with your team, and just take like 10 minutes to 15 minutes to attend the assessment. Because the assessment is what they're also going to use to grade you, and that's just going to happen within 24 hours. So, like I said, by Monday, they are going to notify the successful participants that are moving to phase 2. And I'm not sure, based on the email communication they'll be sending, they are going to be having any makeup class, sort of. So I know that when it comes to Chidema, it's a whole lot. But most importantly, for each and every one of us, this is to each and every one of us, it's very, very important. Do everything possible to ensure that you don't miss the assessments. So, and like I said, it's not something that it's going to take the whole time. It's not a 1 hour assessment. You might spend like 10 minutes, 15 minutes on the assessment, but most importantly, ensure you attempt it. So, and the assessment link is going to be sent via email as well. So I don't know the answer I'm seeing up. If your questions have been attended to, please kindly drop your hand. And okay, I want to see. Okay, someone was talking about Marcos. You still don't have access to attendance link. Okay. Janet, please, can you share the attendance link or whoever that has the attendance link amongst the participants? Please, if any one of you can lay your hand on that, if you can lay your hand on that, kindly share. This is very, very important to fill the attendance link as well. So those of you using the comments, use the Q&A session. That's where I am, but let me just see what you wrote. What about those who not submitted their proposal? So there's a person from my if my project is in school and school is in good. So that's why they said it should not necessarily, does not necessarily have to be within the 4 walls of school. It's something we can identify other community groups, and we add someone mentioning that she's working with market women, and we have people that are working with other artisan groups or religious groups as well. Thank you very much, Ellen, for sharing that. So, Khadija, you're asking assessment dates. That's very wrong. That means you've not been reading your email. So if you check your email, the first thing is the assessment is there. Every information you need is there. And it's also a learning curve for each and every one of us to keep to, we ensure we make use of our email as development. We are all change makers, because we believe that you are not just going to be operating within Nigeria. You are going to be known across, you are going to be known for great things globally. And email too is one of the major things which you have to learn to use very well. So please, every information you need on your email, and it's very, very important to share that. I don't need to share the program guide with you again. The climate education and sensitization is detailed already. And when it gets to the aspect of climate research and workshop, we are going to group you. They are going to group each and every one to their various thematic areas, and those who your team members are, and also what the focal area. What you are going to be working on. So these are very important. The climate education and sensitization, you can start immediately on Monday, and you can definitely it should not go beyond 21st of April, because each and everyone are expected to submit their reports 24th of April. So there is a form for you to submit your report. There's a form for you to submit your climate research and workshops activities. And there's a template for you to submit that. So you don't need to disturb yourself. It's just a 2-pager template which will be shared with you. And whatever you are doing, also endeavor to ensure you have a proper record in form of pictures, and even if it's a virtual campaign you are having, ensure that you have screenshots, but most importantly, you must have a good record of what you are doing, because it's part of what is going to form your report. So those are the basic things for phase 2. And like I earlier mentioned, by next week, I don't know, hopefully before Wednesday, Thursday, we are going to be grouped, and by Monday, we are going to receive a congratulatory email for those who are moving to phase 2. And that is also going to, it's going to be in line with approval for the climate education and sensitization which you proposed. And if there is a disapproval, you definitely know the reason why they are disapproving your climate sensitization and education project. So you might have to work on submit your proposal, but that will communicate with you back, But most importantly, ensure you complete and submit your proposal before Sunday evening. So that's just the key thing which each and everyone has to get done between now and Sunday, and we can get to right on from there. This is 12:31 already. I want to believe I've attended to all questions, but if there are questions that I've not attended to, please, can you please just drop it in the Q&A? Kendi, I think we've attended to your question. You can lower your hand. And I want to see other people that have not attended to their question. Eniola, You've attended to your question, right? Okay. Please use the Q&A session. Use the Q&A session. Use the Q&A session. Very, very important. For some of us, Godwin said, for some of us, I'm able to join the class last week and the week before the last because of network. What should we do? So you didn't attend 2 sessions out of how many sessions, maybe? Okay, just ensure you participate in their assessment, and assessment might be a leverage. I know that there is a percentage to attendance and there's a percentage to assessment. Yeah, so you definitely will still have an average score. Ensure you have a good score in your assessments, and I wish you success. So who are others that you are yet to attend to their questions? I want us to end this call because those who are going to pray, can they, you said no. Okay, can you just drop your question in the Q&A session? I'm going to respond to that. Well, we don't have control regarding the time. Adeleye Precious, we don't have control regarding the time. It's whatever the management decide we follow. So there's a limit to what the program managers or the program coordinators can decide regarding the time. All we need to do is to facilitate the program and ensure it runs smoothly. So, and if you are saying 2 p.m., 2 p.m. might not be okay for that person. So just most importantly, try as much as possible to dedicate 10 to 15 minutes and ensure you take your assessments. So I want to believe each and everyone has been responded to. And if there is still an urgent need and you need something, you need a clearer information regarding the program, you can reach out to the program managers, and I know that Ellen will definitely be for sure to respond to each and everyone on the call. I wish you all a wonderful and productive weekend. Thank you all for being part. Thank you for your commitment, and yeah. And to our facilitator that led the first session, I think he has always been on moments. Yeah, I thought I saw him earlier. Thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to further engage with you. All right, have a wonderful weekend and a restful holiday.